Great. Hi, everybody. My name's Lisa, and I'm the archivist for the Congregation of St. Joseph here in Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I am from. And today, Veronica asked me to talk to you about my experience with deaccessioning. And and everything I know about what I've been working on, I have made up or learned as I go. So I think that's what we do as archivists. I also, I'm kind of, a very fluid, flexible speaker. So if you have questions as I go, just chime in and ask. I have a couple things that I could show you or not show you. I don't know what you care about or what you're interested in learning about. But this is what happened to me. So I work for the Congregation of St. Joseph Archives. We are a consolidated archives. We came together, 7 community archives came together in 2007. I was hired in 2015. The intention had been, but had not been carried out, that all of these archives were from the 7 different founding communities would be moved together under one roof, and that roof would be in Cleveland. So that was already decided. Physical structures had not been decided upon, et cetera, et cetera. But when I was hired in 2015, there were a few communities where the buildings were on the verge of being torn down, and I had to go and get things out of there right away. So, so these early communities where I went and moved things right away, I really didn't get involved in what the contents were. I really had to get them out of the building in a rush job, and things were just labeled, box labeled, palletized, and shipped. A couple of years ago, I was working to move. I had a lot more time, and the assistant archivist, Sarah Lubelski, a lot of you know her already. I know she's involved in ACWR and on the tech committee. She and I were involved in a slower move. We were moving the archives from Nazareth, Michigan, which is in Kalamazoo, to Cleveland. So we had a lot more time. What made this unusual is that it had an entire museum component attached to it. So there were tons of 3-dimensional objects like a horse-drawn fire hose wagon. So huge objects like that. You can imagine how big that was. 3 organs. They had displays set up in this room. It used to be an area that before, I think they were the stacks, the library stacks for the college library years and years ago. So it was a pretty big area. They had things like a convent dining room and a convent bedroom set up like a replica. Lots of mannequins with nursing habits on, children mannequins with textile marching band uniforms on from the various schools. Big drums and bugles, people's desks, like Monsignor O'Brien, the first bishop there, one of his roll top desks. And from there it just went on, and all of your standard stuff like chalices, paintings, etc., etc. So when we started to look at moving the archives, I had to look at that it included all of those things. And in all of the rooms where treasures had been stored for many years, little cubbies and corners, we found oil paintings, some by the sisters, some they looked pretty Italian Renaissance to me, the tapestries, things that were worth nothing and things that might have a monetary value of a lot. We found lots of old family Bibles, not necessarily of the sisters, but they've accumulated them. And then on top of it all, in your standard traditional archival materials, we had a lot of manuscript collections that the sisters had just happened to have come to them. So they had all of these early manuscript collections of papers, personal paper collections of early chaplains and priests, so men right? And we're women's congregation. So the history of that area is that it fell under the aegis of the Archdiocese of Detroit for many years, and the Diocese of Kalamazoo was started in, I think, 77. And so they never really had much of an archives or an archival program. So the sisters who had academies and libraries and colleges with libraries and special collections on their campus for decades and decades and decades had accumulated various sets of records. They had the records of the dairy farm where it had all of the breeding and it was the most bizarre thing I'd ever seen, where each page was like, shaped like a cow and had little marks all over the cow's body to show which, this was Daisy versus Elsa, that kind of thing, and how much milk they produced. So we had dairy farm records. So there were all kinds of things in there as I encountered them, but some of them were very obvious. We did not need to keep those in our archives. And we certainly didn't need to keep them in the archives that was moving to Cleveland, Ohio, when this was the records of the dairy farm in Kalamazoo from the 1890s. Then next thing we started to realize, and before I got there, there was an archivist. Her name's Lisa Murphy. She works full-time at Kalamazoo College. She's a great archivist. She had been working part-time at Kalamazoo College and part-time in this archives. And she said to me and sent me a proposal indicating that in addition to all of these personal papers of the clergy, there was a whole nother element and layer of local Kalamazoo activity that was being documented in these records that they couldn't find anyplace else. And would I please consider leaving them in Kalamazoo? So there was a lot of push-pull, and I think some of it came also from the community itself. So we, as archivists, are going into communities where we're going to be needing to consolidate archives and move it out of the geographic area where it is. And that can be really sensitive when we're merging and consolidating archives. The sisters that are left there in Kalamazoo, some of them were like, well, why are you even bothering to take our archives? Who gives a whatever about our records in Cleveland? And so I did have to be optimistic and speak about technology helping us overcome the geographical barriers, and that scholars these days actually really enjoy having things under one roof. But I had to really think about what I was doing and what I was taking away from Kalamazoo also. So in the end, what we did is we had to do a level of appraisal for each collection and run it through some decision-making, kind of a decision-making framework that we came up with. And I decided to interpret my own mission statement that I wrote. And so this is, I think, kind of important. So you have to decide to reinterpret your own mission statement that I am not going to document student life. That's a decision I made that for my mission statement and collecting scope for my archives that I'm running, is that we are documenting the sisters, but for everything else that they ran, the hospitals, the orphanages, the boarding schools, the parochial schools, the colleges, and both things that they owned and both things that were owned by others that they operated. The decision is that I'm here to document what the sisters' ministry and passion was to get that ministry off the ground and to keep it going. So I'm not here to document student life. I'm not here to document the patient's life or the medical advancements that went on behind closed doors in all of the labs. So I have to draw a line somewhere, and I have to I believe, and you could say incorrectly, but I believe correctly, that some of those materials were tied to the area and had to stay there. They were part of that life. So I also I had some pressures too. I had pressures from the local community. There was a very vocal and involved alumni association in Kalamazoo. So they were they had already started to argue with me, I felt, before we'd even started our discussion. So they kind of came at me pretty strong, but that's all right. I'm cool with that. And I really saw where they were coming from. I could see where they had a lot of fears that their materials were going to go away. We also had to deal with the Diocese of Kalamazoo, thinking that or laying claim to the papers of the first bishop of Kalamazoo. So that was about 30 feet. And the sisters are the ones who had it. I don't know how they came across it, if they were the ones to just preserve it as they went. But I mean, that's a very significant collection for that area and for certain scholars. I haven't even looked at my notes. I've just been talking off the top of my head. So in the end, let's see. In the end, we deaccessioned things to a couple of different universities, primarily Western Michigan University's Deaccession collection, which is spelled Z-H-A-N-G. And those archivists are fabulous, and they're just great people, really connected to the community in Kalamazoo, and that's part of their collecting scope. So our models were perfect to go there. So we donated there all of our personal papers of the clergy. We donated we gave them the papers of Monsignor O'Brien, knowing that, like, on paper, it is implied that they are actually the property of the Diocese of Kalamazoo. However, that we give you, the language in my paperwork was that we donate them to Western Michigan with the knowledge that the Diocese of Kalamazoo understands that this is the safest place for them to be. Because the Diocese of Kalamazoo today is just, their idea of an archives is, you know, literally they've got like a dusty attic somewhere. They don't have the money or funds or the staffing to take care of it. So this was a win-win situation. So that required a ton of back and forth with the Vicar General and other people, a lot of interested parties. So there was a lot of politics involved in that. Anything with the Alumni Association, they were very concerned. They had always walked into this museum and held little parties in there all the time at the sisters' place. So they didn't know where they were going to be gathering, how they were going to have access to all of their yearbooks. So we set up something, and I hope it's worked out with the Western Michigan University, that they could still come in and have an alumni event there once a year. They call it their Spirit Day. And I think that they're still doing that, where they could pull out all their old yearbooks and scrapbooks. And they, in the end, asked if they had gotten a grant to take care of some photo albums. So since they had done that and put the preservation work into it themselves, I actually deaccessioned those photo albums to them. It was just kind of politics. It was a good move. It made them feel better that they had something in their own hands. And I made them sign a deaccession. I think I called it an indefinite loan form that, again, I'm giving you these items with the knowledge that when the time is right, you will put them someplace safe, which we recommend the Western Michigan University collection, so it can be with all the rest of your other papers. So those are things that were donations. We also put our records on deposit with the Western Michigan University. So those things, because we need to protect the things that the sisters created. So it's at the Western Michigan University, the large collection of the Sisters of St. Joseph collections, with all of our collections inside that, but they are on deposit, so we retain the copyright. And that made my sister leadership feel better about privacy issues and such. Most of the things that we gave them, we shouldn't have any privacy issues with what the contents are, even though I didn't have time to really go through everything. But it's mostly documenting student life and life at the colleges when most of the staff became, the faculty became lay. And am I boring you? This is super boring. Blah, blah, blah. Lisa just talked forever. Oh my gosh. What was I going to show you in my Word documents? So in my Word documents.
This is really interesting, Lisa. You are not boring us at all. This is wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Sister Agnes. Okay. So the way I started with all of this, oh, first of all, here's a typical picture. Can you see that? You see that picture? Well, no, oh yes, okay, can't hear you, okay. So that's like Monsignor O'Brien's desk, and that's just like one long view I came up with that shows you just a portion of the history room that I inherited, that when I came in, they were like, packed up the archives and this is just one little tiny view. So inside all of those drawers of that desk were all kinds of stuff. They had accumulated like over 100 years. So there's all kinds of stuff there. Then there's this desk, and there's all little objects you can see there. Then there's this chair, and that's special too. Then there's the picture on top of the desk. That's a picture of, that's really an archival item, right? It's a photograph. It's Monsignor O'Brien sitting at the desk. All right, so then go look behind it, and you see these huge oak bookcases. So the bookcases themselves have archival historical value because they came from the original college. Then there's all this stuff on them that's like 1 million copies of the same ephemera, the same yearbooks over and over again. We got through that. Then on the tables, and this is one of maybe 12 tables in that room, I think that were that size. It's got stuff on it all the time. And those bound volumes are the scrapbooks that I deaccessioned to the Alumni Association because they had created those on a grant. And you can kind of get an idea by looking behind that. You see like a school banner, a lamp, blah, blah. Oh my gosh, it just went on. And every time you opened a drawer, you're like, oh my gosh, here's some 19th century manuscripts just hanging out. I don't know who stuffed them in this drawer, but they thought it had to do with this piece of furniture. So it just went on and on. Someone said something in the chat. This is great now. Okay, thanks, Rebecca. All right, so I'm gonna stop screen sharing again. And then, so the one other thing I wanted to mention is that we started working with lists. And I'm gonna screen share again. Share my screen. And, okay. All right, so here's an example of a list, and we took a lot of pictures of, see, there's a bugle. So the person that came before me, Lisa Murphy, was great about getting everything photographed before I started working there. And another place we donated, not deposited, but we donated a million things to, I think it ended up being over 700 items, was the Kalamazoo Ballet Museum. So that was great because they were really interested in textiles. So not just three-dimensional things, but a lot of the two-dimensional stuff that we find in collections. So this ribbon, this banner, and then of course some of these endless, they didn't take everything here. These were just things I had suggested as possible interest. But as you can see, I was very lucky to have an archivist come before me and do an object description. And most important of all, it's provenance. So no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're working on, if you're working on getting rid of materials, I don't care if you're selling it, donating it, deaccessioning it, depositing it, you want to get together your provenance on it because it just kept coming up over and over again. I had somebody ask me, this is the kind of thing that happened a lot. I hear you're closing. My great-grandfather donated a sword from the Barber Hall Military Academy to your museum down there, and now I want it back. It belongs to my family. You know, like, one of 12 swords. What do I care? So I said, sure. But the thing was like finding the exact sword, because it's supposed to have, Valley was the name, last name on the sword. It's supposed to be on the handle. Oh boy, was that just a bear to try and find. So, so there were a lot of things like that where like, I know that off the top of my head, but I also have it on paper that I gave this sword back to the family because he did come back again and ask somebody else for it. And I said, he came and picked it up last week. I have it on paper. I have his signature. So all of those kinds of things that just endless paperwork, endless lists, you can't go wrong. It's not a waste of time to do all of that kind of stuff. So, so we really did. Oh, look, see, there's the, can you see that? The display with the big drum and the two big drums and the swords. There's one of those swords. And then that big stone there. Oh my gosh. So we just endless things that are not archival. Here's one of the 3 organs I had to find a home for. Good grief. And that had a whole story too behind it. So it was really hard to get rid of things when there were great big stories behind it. Fortunately, I reached out through, I would pick up tidbits in the dining room about where else I might be able to unload some things where things would be really valued. And this organ one found a great home. In fact, the man who took that organ also took another one of the organs. We had 3 organs in there. And then we had a little tiny, like a children's size organ, and the Kalamazoo Valley Museum took that. So that was great. And then there were some things like these little pins here, the spirit buttons for Guacamole 90. I had no idea that Guacamole 90, that's the kind of thing I might, without thinking about it, have thrown away, correct? But when they saw it, they just went bananas because the mole was the class animal or the school mascot, I guess you would say, for Nazareth College. And there aren't very many things left that had the mole insignia on it. How about that? All right, so well, just goes on and on and on. Stop share. Let me look really quick and just see if I had anything else that I thought was interesting to share with you. I wanted to show you, oh, I know, it's in my, over here. I just wanted to show you really quick my list, my example of my list, and then I'll stop sharing, okay? Zoom. Share screen. Here we are. So, share. Okay. So I had a lot of personalities that I'm dealing with in the sisters community, and I was living there at Nazareth for quite some time, working on everything. So I really wanted to keep everybody up to date. So I really recommend this if you are connected to a sisters community, is that the lines of communication stay open and strong. So I did one night invite all the sisters. I made this handout. I invited them after dinner for a little half-hour presentation where I talked about, I was really upbeat and talked about new homes for history. So I wanted them to know how much this area around Kalamazoo loved them, appreciated them, and desired and found them to be valuable. So I thought that was really an important part of this whole thing. And that these places such as the Kalamazoo Valley Museum and Kalamazoo, not Kalamazoo College, but Western Michigan University, where we're really looking forward to having them visit afterward. And this is great too, because the day that Sarah and I went on this field trip, we took Sister Georgiana with us. And so she's in the pictures too. So there was that sister connection, and Georgiana had such a great time. And that's a great picture there at Western Michigan University. Their stacks are 80 feet tall. They use a cherry picker. Really, it's really an incredible place. And then the Kalamazoo College above has a special rare book room for A.M. Todd. And Mr. Todd family was a big philanthropist in Kalamazoo, and he had also given very valuable things like a book of hours to the sisters, and so we were able to donate to their special collection. So just that they were able to contribute back, I think that made them really feel a part of, and not not that they were being ripped away, but they're actually contributing and getting tighter and closer to their local community, which is what it was all about. So then I wanted to just show you, I don't know how, there we are. Okay, so no, let's, not so much that one. Let's look at, okay, so here I have a notebook, and in that notebook I have all the finding aids for the records from when we transferred or donated them to the Western Michigan University, as well as the Diocesan Archives, as well as everybody else. And so you can see here, I made a list of all of the collections. So again, paperwork, I made, and for anything that we hadn't processed or somebody else had processed, we had a processing note we added to the front of the finding aid that said, here's what we didn't do, here's what we recommend, here's what we know about it. And you can see, looking at it, that the bulk is that academic stuff. The academy records are 25 feet. The college records were 60 feet. Hospital records, Lefevre was a, I don't know, some kind of boarding place, and same with the residential programs. And then we had tons of miscellaneous unprocessed stuff. We had tons of yearbooks that were out from those out in that room. And then we had all those small collections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6 guys there, 6 men whose papers we transferred. One fun thing I'll tell you about the Sipowicz papers is that they were super old and super fragile. He went up and worked with the Native Americans, the Ojibways, in the state of Michigan. So there they are, sitting around, lounging in our archives, undiscovered. I can only imagine that some scholar is going to be very excited that those are there now. So it made me feel really good, because I know that the Sipowicz papers were never going to get put online during my short lifetime here from my archives, because it's not going to be a priority in this archives. But I know that for people doing Native American research, that those materials would be a super big priority, even if they're just looking at how to write the alphabet from back then. So I'm glad that they're there and that we could get them out. We also deaccessioned materials, little bits here and there, mostly portraits and such, probably like 12 different diocesan archives. I didn't even ask them if they wanted them. I just sent them. And then we sent a whole bunch of stuff that I dropped off at places like Lansing, Detroit Archdiocese, etc. Just stuff that it was just duplicative. We just did not want it. So I've just talked myself into the ground. Does anybody want to say anything? Yeah, well, gosh, I've talked for half an hour. Hey, Holly. No? All right. I'm going to look at my notes then and see if there's anything
Actually,
else.
I do have a question, Lisa.
Okay, sure.
You just mentioned that you sent things off to these various dioceses without asking.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say.
Did I hear you?
Oh, yeah, I didn't. I mean, I don't really care if they don't want them. But I was like, well, I mean, they were just like pictures of men, of clergy that the sisters had just gathered in folders. Different people who, bishops would send out their pictures when they were put in office. And so
right.
I think that was just probably just a thing you did in the 40s through the 60s. You'd send out pictures to everybody of
well, they handed them out like holy cards.
I know. So I just packed them up and sent them back. Just took them out of the frames, kept the frames, sent them back. And
okay.
I mean, yeah, and things just, the sisters collected everything everywhere. I mean, we still have boxes here, not from the Nazareth community per se, but we found things from the Wichita community that are all about President Kennedy. I mean, everybody saved the Life magazine of President Kennedy, or clippings of Jackie at his funeral and again, it's not an original, it's just a clipping from like People magazine or something, like where she's holding the hand, is that really sad picture where she's holding the hands of the children and they're standing at the grave, and it's just clipped from a newspaper or Life magazine. But I mean, we have tons of that kind of stuff. Oh, we even found a copy of Declaration of Independence the other day. One of those fake copies that somebody had put in Mylar. Isn't that nuts? We have tons of things like that.
So what do you do with those?
What? Oh, we threw it away.
Circular file, right? Okay.
Well, actually, that one we were keeping because we thought it was kind of fun. We're going to do something fun with it. Use it as an example in one of our little teaching classes. But so I'm just thinking, and I just wanted to look and see, is there anything else you wanted to ask me about anything?
Mr. Agnes, I see you're unmuted also. Did you have a question?
No, I didn't. I'm just getting ready to listen in case I do.
Okay. I think the most important thing is that, like I said, documenting for the reasons of provenance, because you always want to know like where you got it from, and because I love to find those records when the archivists have left them for me from the past, because it always comes up. Statuary. I still get questions about things like, do you know what happened to such and such fireplace? We're always looking that up, and you want to know what you decided to do with it and where it went. And somebody wanted to know about a nursing habit recently, and I was able to say, and that was great off the top of my head. Oh, sure, it's at the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. And but I made a decision based upon the mission statement that I wrote for my own institution, which is that we are not going to document student life, that we don't have enough room. So now that I've made that decision and I put it into effect for that one collection, how does that affect everything else in my archive? So that was kind of my one little sticky point I have. Now that I come across like big chunks of student photographs or student records, about like glee club or drama clubs and such. And it's just not so much really it's not a school that we owned maybe, but maybe only that we operated. So then I'm starting to think about deaccessioning more so that I'm being consistent in my application.
That can get tough though sometimes. I mean, we've tried to make that distinction also with our collection, but then we had a whole collection of the transcripts from our Mount St. Joseph Academy, which was in the mother house. I mean, it was physically on the campus, and it was our school. It was only.
Well, then you need to keep it, right?
And that was it. And there really wasn't another home for it that made sense. So that's about the only transcript collection we have. We had a nursing school transcript collection from a hospital in Dayton that had closed, and that really came to us just because the sister that was involved was like, "You're getting everything," and I was like, "Oh, well, how many transcripts can there be?" And it was like 16 boxes. It was like, And then with the pandemic, people, there were these federal requests for the transcripts because they were getting back in, even those who had been retired and things, just they needed so much help. So that was at that point, I was like, this needs to go to a hospital. This needs to go to an actual medical records facility that can handle these kinds of requests.
So we did not saddle Western Michigan with any transcripts. So when I say the things that I'm talking about, really student life, all of the student clubs, and which is quite a lot of stuff. I mean, there are lots of dramas and dramatics clubs with minutes, plus all of their stuff, their photographs and their programs and their scrapbooks and their ephemera about all the student involvement. So, but we really did not send them any student transcripts, any records that they were going to have a legal obligation, because that's just not what they're about. Yeah.
And it is a major obligation. Really until that COVID time, the early months of COVID. That was rough.
So what did you do with the student transcripts? Did you just destroy them?
Well, it depends. If it was a school that was owned and operated by us, then we do have a responsibility to oversee them. If it was a parochial school, of course, then they go to the diocese, and we shouldn't have had them anyway. So some of the decisions had already been made for me. So when Nazareth College closed, their office had all of the student transcripts from the schools, from many of the schools before it, Nazareth Academy. And they made a decision at that time to transfer them. It's called Davenport College. And I think it's in Kansas. and they have, for whatever reason, and I don't understand, you know, I'm not a registrar. I don't understand why they took the records, what the agreement was, but that's where they are. So, and that's something now with, that I'll have to make sure it's on our website so that people know where to go. The transcripts, the student transcripts that we do have in our archives are primarily so old that the students would be so elderly at this point that they wouldn't ever need them. So the only reason we ever really get asked to go into them is for genealogical requests. And then, you know, still, we don't copy anything. We just extrapolate the data that we feel comfortable sharing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. But we're lucky. We don't really have to deal with any transcripts. However, if we did have more modern transcripts, I think that there would be like a whole bunch of laws about it that we probably still wouldn't have to worry too much about it. And we do, I'll just mention, since we're on that topic, that we do have a school, St. Joe's Academy in New Orleans, that we don't have any records from. They were destroyed during Hurricane Katrina. They were on the first floor where the floods were. So we have all the historical records from New Orleans because they were on the second floor of the building. So the first floor was all destroyed during Hurricane Katrina. And those records, for whatever reason, there are not copies in the Archdiocesan, the New Orleans Archdiocese, or the Louisiana Department of Education. It's the craziest. So I feel requests like that about once every other month. I have to turn somebody away and explain that I'm sorry, gone forever. But again, it's pretty old. I think that closed in the 70s. Yeah. So again, I think the whole point of the deaccessioning is about improving scholarship. I've worked places in the past where there were always turf wars, like working in Michigan, you know, who gets what? Does it go to the state library? Does it come to the University of Michigan library? And I decided that I just wasn't going to think like that. You know, there were always going to be enough records for me in my archives. I really didn't have to think like that. It really was about finding the best home so that they could get access to researchers.
Could you share a bit about some of the ways you work through art collections or any kind of?
Okay, so that got crazier and crazier. So inherited with this, the History and Heritage room that I showed you were all of the art on the walls. And then behind that, there were lots of cubbies and like old bank vaults that were kind of built in places. You'd open them up and be like, oh, hello, art, you know, just talk. And because their proximity to the archives and the history room just made them kind of the property of the archives. So then there were the same artists had art hanging all over the convent, which was enormous. There was a reliquary shrine in the chapel, the Holy Family Chapel. The windows in the Holy Family Chapel were art. So then from there, not only that, but there was statuary everywhere, scattered everywhere. And then it turns out that like all of the wooden just frames around the doors were considered like art. In the end, it was kind of a triage type thing. Trying to figure out what to do first. And I came up with a list of one, before I get into whether or not it's archival, decide if you want it in your community. Do you and your fellow sisters want this hanging? Because that's what art's all about, right? It should be out and about and being used. Same with chalices. I don't need them in a box and tissue paper if you need a chalice in your chapel. So my first tier of picking, that's not a little crass, or what I'm trying to think, you know, my first, whoever gets first dibs, right? So I said, okay, the community, decide what you want. Then second, after that, after you take whatever you want, then second, I'll go through and decide what's archival, like really what has historical value, not because I think it's personally monetarily valuable, but historically, intrinsically valuable to your history. And then after that, and maybe even concurrently, were they going to allow sisters to pick things, memorabilia to take in their room? Then we had decided again, before we decided if they were monetarily valuable or not, if they were things that belonged elsewhere. So the Diocese of Kalamazoo really wanted all of their early things back that they felt were theirs. And we decided, and we had very clear language that I worked on with our development department and a lawyer to make sure that it stated like, this is an outright donation and we never want to hear from you again about it because you've been such a total pill this whole time, Mr. Vicar General. And it was horrible. So that included like a silver tea set that belonged to Monsignor O'Brien and a whole bunch of things, you know, pictures of his mother and all that. And like, you know, I know we always joke we could bill them for storing it for 100 years, right? But we all just, everyone, the sisters decided for once and for all, give it to the diocese and they can figure out what they're going to do with it. So, so we figured out what belonged to other people. Let's see. Then, let's see. I have my list here. I know it went down to estate sale. So then after that were things that were really valuable. We had a fine arts dealer come in, and some things were fine arts. Some things were from the 1500s because that philanthropist, A.M. Todd, and I don't know what the A stands for, else I would call him that, maybe Arthur, I don't know, or Albert, maybe Albert. But so Mr. Todd would go to Europe. He was the peppermint oil king. He grew peppermint. That was a really big deal when chewing gum became a big thing and people were using peppermint oil for therapeutic purposes. So he was a peppermint oil king, and he would go on his millions to Europe and buy up Renaissance art and bring it back. And he would give lots to the sisters. So we had all kinds of crazy triptychs and things like that were from the 1500s. So some of the things were valuable. And so some of the things they decided to sell. Some of the things, we had a rare book dealer come in from Detroit who went over our books. Some of them were valuable just because they were collections all by the same author. Some were just historical family Bibles that really had no archival purpose at all. They were not connected to the sisters. They may have had some genealogical value, but not really. They were just really big old books. So so we sold some things, and then I had the alumni. We let the alumni come in and take what they wanted. In the end, they did an estate sale, and then finally we got rid of a lot of things to Catholic charities, to homeless shelters, because this is way past the art. Now we're down to beds, mattresses, desks, but still there were things in there that were really valuable, but that I just couldn't take. Like there was this kind of mid-century desk. It looked like something out of Mad Men, and it was the original desk that was used by Mr. Stryker, who was the inventor of something at the hospital, like a chamber or something. But like, you know, it was such a huge desk, we just couldn't unload it. And so we ended up giving it away. I don't know. So it just went on and on and on. So all those tiers, and then finally, you know, there was nothing but garbage left in the end. Oh, and then we had the people that came from Milwaukee, and they took out all of the wooden frames. So I was not in charge of all of this at all at any point. I was in charge of my stuff, and I kept finding out more and finding more in all of these closets and stained glass and such. So, but I was part of the committee, and that was really nice to be involved in the leadership. So we had a sister who was doing only the stuff from the chapel, another sister who was working with a priest in Chicago. I think his last name's Fragamini, and he does something with relics. So we got him to come and take the entire reliquary, and I got all the paperwork on it. I know, it's so nice because usually you have to bury that kind of stuff, but this was a shrine of relics. It was huge. So he was able to take that. It just really worked out well. It worked out really smoothly in the end, but it was so long and drawn out. But I recommend just, you know, just give it your all, and don't let yourself be stretched beyond your, I know, Veronica, I think you're dealing with a lot of this now, but I just let myself be stretched beyond my natural archival boundaries, because it's really what my employers needed from me at the time. That's really what it was all about, responding to their needs.
Now, did this happen in each of the archives that is now in Cleveland?
Each archives is different. And sometimes I wasn't involved at all. I know that Wichita had a large estate sale, and it was written up in the paper. And I always was kind of disappointed, because I'm sure that there were all kinds of great things that were really archival that ended up there. But so from Wichita, I mean, but it doesn't matter. You know, I really have faith that what I'm supposed to get in the archives is what I'm going to get in the end. And we always have more work to do than we can handle.
It's the nature of the beast.
It really is. And I mean, I have to have faith that God's working out, that, you know, that God's got a plan, and that it's not, you know, it's not for lack of trying, right? I mean, I do my own footwork, but if I don't get everything, I'm not here to make enemies because I'm out ripping little pieces of paper out of everybody's hands everywhere. You know, it's going to be a natural process. Yeah. We have way too many artifacts. We found an empty record album the other day. There's no record in it, but it's just a record album, but it's a Lawrence Welk one, and he signed it.
Ah.
Oh, that was in
And
a box.
1 and a 2.
With the Kennedy stuff. In that Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
It was a good find, though. I'm like, this is probably worth something.
Antiques Roadshow, here you come.
I know. And I mean, and some of the art that was painted by the sisters, like all the, you know, the stuff that everybody else has poo-pooed, we've taken it. It's artistic expression. We have quilts made by sisters, and now we have the display room. I'm so glad we've kept that kind of stuff, because now we're hanging it up. We're hanging up the banners that they've used right now. That's what Sarah's working on. We're doing kind of a peace and protest wall, where she's hanging up the banners the sisters have carried in the on the streets. And,
oh, cool.
Yeah. You know what else we
have any of those?
Very nice.
Yeah. So we're putting up pictures with them. And then now we even created a QR code. That was my idea. It was like, how can we use QR codes? I was at the Museum of Art and I saw them everywhere. I was thinking, man, we should be able to do. Sarah's like, no problem. So she created one, and it goes right to we posted the videos on YouTube. And so, so it goes right to it. And she just starts talking about her Circle the City with Love protest and her silent prayer protest. It's Sister Rita Petrozello. So it's really awesome. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
And she's really into it. We had her come down and do it. We told her we had a surprise for her. So she came and we showed her how to do it on her camera. And she's like, oh my God, anybody's going to get to me? We're like, yeah, absolutely. Pretty cool. Yeah. Life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, you know, lots of paperwork, keeping a cool head, and being open to it. It's just not, it's not a natural. It wasn't natural when I first started thinking it through. You just got to stay open to it. Yeah.
That was the hardest part. Yeah, the mentality aspect.
Yes.
Because I'm such a keeper at heart. And it was, yeah.
And we also have this, just like what I do at home when I'm like getting rid of clothes. Like, I don't necessarily get rid of them. I put them aside for a long time. So Sarah brought in these funny little shoes. They're little doll shoes for a kimono from the Japanese artifacts, and they're obviously tchotchkes, and we don't really need them for anything. And I'm like, they're too cute. I can't just put them in the garbage, and we don't. So, you know, so we have a box where we just put all of that kind of stuff, and maybe someday it'll make its way to the Goodwill or something. But we're starting to find lots of junk. That's all I got.
It's good to take that time, though. I will say I did the same. I actually took a bunch of stuff home and put it in my basement for like 8 months, because I'm like, I don't want anything to happen to it. Like, it's going to be in a safe place. No one's going to like randomly give it to Goodwill or St. Vincent de Paul, and I'm not going to know about it. But now that I'm going through it, I'm like, I don't really, this isn't that important. But at the time, it was like, gotta save it. This is important. But yeah, definitely taken some time out of the moment.
And I love it, you know, because I don't have to save it. Somebody else can save it. Like, I don't need your pictures of your bishops. Here you go. It's really nice that you came, all of you men, and had that event on our front steps, but here's your picture of you back. That bishops conference you held, here you go. Here's all your pictures back. Yeah, worked out good. It worked out pretty good, I think. Worked out pretty good.
All right, well, does anyone else have any other questions? We're getting close to 4 o'clock. So
Well, thanks for attending, everybody. I
Oh,
appreciate that. And it's so nice to see you all.
very informative.
Just one more thing, right? One more thing.
How true, how true.
How long did
Thanks
this,
for coming.
Lisa, how long did this take, this whole process?
Oh, just at Nazareth? It took a really long time. It took a really long time.
Well, you're to be applauded. I can't imagine going through that. I mean,
know.
I'm just going through a small library and a small museum. Our museum is no longer. And we don't have many, you know, monetarily valuable things, very, very few. And I definitely have boxes packed up for the Archdiocese of New York. I'm at Mount St. Vincent in the Bronx.
Okay.
And you know, they're fine with that. But it isn't a lot,
Right.
you know, but we definitely have chairs and you know, I don't know, as awards and things of that
Right.
nature.
Right.
It's a lot to go through.
It is. The one thing I didn't mention that I meant to say too is that a lot of decisions, especially regarding Kalamazoo, were made based upon knowledge of the quality of their archives. So Kalamazoo wants to have an archive. They don't have the money to have one. I'm not giving you like this hugely valuable collection when there's a good home down the street and they'll acknowledge that it's yours. You know, let's all just work this out. So I really push for that instead of saying, you know, good luck with that. You know, instead I kind of really wanted to maneuver that that outcome there. And, you know, I was reluctant. I had a, you know, kind of a scolding talk a little bit with a guy that's in charge of the Diocesan Archives in Detroit, because I said, you know, my understanding is that everything that we've given you about such and such place was destroyed after we gave it to you, and because researchers say that they don't have it. Are you doing that anymore? He's like, not since I got here. So, you know, and here in Cleveland, I don't know what's going on with our Diocesan Archives. I don't know if there's anybody even there. I don't know that Cleveland cares about it, you know. So I have all of these things. The sisters kept all of those cumulative photographs. What do you call them? Composite photographs, group photographs of your classes every year when you were teaching. Well, they're diocesan schools, and you have the teachers in them, but I don't want them. I don't want every single year of St. Anthony. And, you know, just one of like 12 billion schools that I have all of their group pictures from every year. But if I give them back to the diocesan, we have them set aside, marked to go on the day I was feeling like, that's it, they're gone. But then on the other hand, I'm like, oh yeah, Cleveland, they're not taking care of the archives. Then no one will ever be able to do any genealogical research.
Well, the woman that was there, Lisa, died suddenly. Christine.
She did. Yeah, she was. I was a very young archivist in training when I went on a tour there. I remember that. That was decades ago. And then Phil Haas was there. I never met him. I talked to him once on the phone, but they had a job opening, didn't they, Veronica?
That's what I was gonna say. That's how I knew. There's no one
I
there.
never heard that it was filled.
Yeah.
But
I've never heard it was filled.
You did hear it was filled?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah, me neither. I just saw the job posted. I never heard of anybody applying, nothing. So
it is filled. It is filled.
Okay.
Yeah. So the woman that works there now, her name is Emily Ahlin, Ahlin. She's a fresh graduate from University of Pittsburgh. So she's been there for like maybe 3 months.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So there is someone there. She is a professional archivist. She just got her MLIS. So she's kind of
good.
picking up the pieces. Yeah, I met her over like the mentorship program for Society of American Archivists.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah, and so we've been chatting once a month.
Oh,
And
sure. Great.
yeah, so she is, you know, trying to get get her feet under her. But I told her, you know, that even though it's a diocesan archive,
Yeah.
ACWR could be
Oh, sure.
of some support for her. So, but yeah,
We
so
would
there is
love to-
someone.
Yeah, if you would give her our info, archives@csjoseph.org. Yeah, Sarah and I would love to have lunch with her. Yeah. that'd
Okay.
be fun.
Yep. I will let her know. She'll be happy to
Yeah,
hear from
that'd
you.
be great. See, now maybe I can get rid of those boxes of photos. I keep
Yes.
putting on photos. Yeah, 'cause I mean, I said I'm not documenting student life, so I just really have to keep. I have to keep it. I have to stay strong. Stay strong with my decisions. So, thanks so much. It's been an hour. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you
Thank you, Lisa.
very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye now. Take care.